Regarding the school bombing in southern Iran, I think it is extremely obvious what happened. The school used to be a part of some sort of compound, but around 2016, it was split off from the rest of it, fenced off, renovated, new entrance added where there wasn't before. So any proper intelligence on the target would clearly identify that it was no longer a part of that compound, but the Americans still struck it because they interpret it as a military target. This could mean two or three things. One, they went off an old plan and the building was determined to be struck before it was converted to a civilian target. Two, they knew it had been converted but thought it was still a government building. Or three, they didn't do any proper intelligence, which means that I think all three of these, well, except maybe for two, I think all three of these possible options are reasons why the American war on Iran has failed. It's clearly poorly planned and poorly executed. So, I'd say when after the 12-day war is when there was people talking about how Israel and America needs to strike Iran again. So I think at the that's the very latest I think planning was done, which means that there's been 7 months of planning for this war. So I think that, yeah, I think in 7 months they should have been able to look at every target they're going to strike on the initial target, know exactly what it is, and what the blah blah blah. But this was clearly rushed. They didn't do any proper intelligence. And Pete Hegseth was boasting of no rules of engagement, which means I suspect that there's like red tape in the American military where like you have to properly identify a target and consider civilian impacts and all that stuff. And Pete Hegseth for like, we're going to streamline the process, blah blah blah, none of these things, which means that there was probably less identification of the targets, less double checking, and that meant that under a more stringent system this would have been identified as a school, but under the Pete Hegseth military it wasn't, so it was struck. Or alternatively, America was operating off old plans, which means this war was doomed to fail because it was fighting Iran of 10 years ago, not Iran of this year, which actually does make sense because 10 years ago Iran didn't have shaheeds, they had less technology, and the Americans were surprised. So I would imagine that they would have had plans made like more than 10 years ago, and that the Americans were surprised by the reaction because their expensive, well-made plan didn't account for the advances Iran has made, especially since the 12-day war. So I think that is why I think either way it is a good reason on why America failed. So yes, the bigger tragedy is all the almost over like 150, 180, 100, almost 200 school children which were tragically killed. But I think if you look at it broader, it has revealed just how terrible the American plan was, and that is all.